as the whole thing shifts around the ecliptic, you get this diamond-shaped pattern. To me, and what I want to show in this whole thing, is that that's the most important geometric shape there is. But I want to show it to you at Göbekli Tepe. In order for me to prove what Göbekli Tepe is, I have to go through all this stuff for Göbekli Tepe. I just want to get into it and start explaining it. Just put it out there that this is what it is. But for you, I want you to feel like you understand that the zigzag really is. It's not just a decoration on the oldest temples. It really is about the moon mostly. But look at this. So there's a culture called the Berbers. These guys have that diamond shape. See that shape?
Yep.
Because people believed it was the spine of the serpent. Like that shape got mixed up in their heads as being linked to two serpents crossing together. But sometimes it was one serpent, and then the eyes were two smaller serpents that crossed paths. But these guys only sacrificed to the sun and moon, and these are their symbols. Right? So it starts to become clear, okay, well, it probably means something. Actually, the guy who talked to them in the 1800s or whatever the hell this was, this is his actual notes. And he actually said right there, when they're doing their tattoos, it's supposed to be the spine of a snake, and it's ideally 14 links, which is one of those lunar numbers, because we have 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So 14 is a full moon. 14 is a full moon, which leads to eclipses. And so for them, the whole ecliptic was like a spine of the universe. What else? I want to get to the idea of shifting zigzags is important for Göbekli Tepe, because they appeared for a few thousand years before it. I want to get you to the first pillar of Göbekli Tepe, but not in this. It'll be in the next one, so the third video should be the one. But this place called Mezin has these, not me, but somebody else has done research that says this bracelet is probably a calendar. For me, I saw shifting zigzags. It's here. When they roll it out, it's zigzags that turn into yin-yang symbols. These are the world's oldest yin-yang symbols. You don't know much about yin-yang stuff yet, I bet. But I'll show you all that stuff too.
But I know it's like opposites, right?
Yeah. And so you think of, and not just opposites, they're always linked to the sun and moon, and they're always about inversions. So sun and moon stuff, but inversions of those times. So the black sun versus the bright sun and stuff like that. I wanted to show you a really good one. Well, some of the world's oldest community buildings had these things on it. There's one of the subjects we'll get to is the word wreath, like a Christmas wreath on your door, and writhe, like snakes writhing. Those two words come from the same thing, and I'm going to show you that over time too. I want to show you the oldest. Remember we were talking about the oldest cities in the world last time?
Okay.
And one of them is called Ur, and Ur, like Jericho, some of the oldest places, named after the sun, or named after the moon, sorry. Ur means the Abode of Nanna, and they called Nanna, that was their name for the moon. And Nanna, I want to show you this. So this is the Ziggurat of Ur. This was called the Ziggurat. And this is aligned to the furthest north. Actually, it's happening now. We're in a time where the moon is, remember I told you since 2006 or whenever it was, like 2006, 2004, somewhere in there was the last time we had a major lunar standstill where the moon rises at its maximum point way up there. That's happening this year. And at that point, it would be the time when they could see a shadow, like the moon would make a straight line shadow straight up those stairs, only at the moon's northernmost rising point, that way. So they aligned this ziggurat so that it was pointing straight where the moon would rise only once every 18.6 years. So they were definitely looking at these patterns, these tridents on the horizon, those three lines on the horizon. They had literally made their ziggurat a tool to measure that. So that 9-year period back and forth. But only once every 18.6 years you actually see the moon at that far north point. And they align the ziggurat to that. Nobody really knows why. Like, there's not much use in doing that, other than there won't be a we had a conversation earlier today about looking up at every airplane. But there's not much point in aligning something to the moon because nothing happens and you can't get an eclipse there. So what is the reason for doing it? And it might be because their new year, they planted, like the first city was built by farmers. They were the first farmers and they built the first cities because they expanded so well because they were successful at farming. They grew. So they built the first cities. And they aligned the whole city to the moon, and Ur especially. And the only reason to do that is their new year was on the equinox. And if they had the moon shining up those stairs at the end of that cycle, that was one way they could tell that there would be an eclipse on the equinox at their new year, the Akitu festival. And that could be a big, they had these festivals, but they also had this replacement king ritual where if there was an eclipse coming, they would kill the king. And then it wasn't really killing the king. They would get a replacement king. They would get some guy, replace him on the throne, and then kill him as a sacrifice to the moon, or whatever was going on there, the demons that come out of it. Okay. So for the next couple minutes, all I want to do is get you to the point where I can say, let's move on, and the next video will be about Göbekli Tepe. It'll be the first pillars of Göbekli Tepe. They called the moon an eye, which is what we're going for. I'm going to show you all that stuff too, that the moon was an eye to them, as well as other things. But they called it an eye and a dragon. The eye of man is a dragon. And think of the serpents that we were talking about? They become dragons later. Like everything you've ever heard about dragons comes from this stuff. It comes from serpents that could eat the sun. That's why dragons can breathe fire, because the original job was to eat the sun.
Oh.
Yeah. So this one place, the Royal Cemetery of Ur, nothing but those zigzags. And see stuff like this. So like this thing has that same pattern of 9 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the 9th one is in the middle, where you can get an eclipse. And they thought of eclipses sometimes as fruit. So this ramen thicket thing that they called it is from the cemetery, buried with their kings and queens, which was all about them having something to do in the afterlife. They would travel to the eastern horizon in the afterlife, where there used to be a tunnel for the sun. The sun's tunnel through the earth was on the horizon. They assumed there was one because I think you and I have talked about that one before, where they assumed the sun was smaller than we do today.
Yeah.
So they assumed there were gates on the horizon. And the biggest tragedy in the history of humans might very well be the day we realized the sun was too big for that, and it shut that tunnel down, because everyone believed the afterlife was around those tunnels of the horizon. They believed that either you went up or down, whichever. Everyone had a different version of it. You either went up or down in those tunnels. And I can tell you stuff here too, like see the patterns here. They used to believe that the bull held, often when you see a bull in ancient art, you'd see a solar disk in it too, between the horns. But when you don't see a solar disk in between, sometimes they had the same patterns, like the bull held up. They believed the bull was a strong animal that was they compared it to holding up the whole universe. But they believed that the bulls of the horn, or the horns of the bull, could hold up the ecliptic itself. So you get these types of designs too. I guess next time we'll just go right into Göbekli Tepe. Instead of going through all of this is the whole point of the book. Like here, let me show you. If I show you, look at all these. Each one of these is 500 pages, right? And I've got dozens of them. It's a massive project, right? And it takes me all the way to the end to get to Göbekli Tepe. And I don't want to do that. I want to show you Göbekli Tepe now and then have the book show all that other stuff. So it's an experiment on that. Anyways, we're home.